Hey guys, welcome to the Filmora music video series. My name's Jony, and today we're going to be talking about color correction and color grading. These two steps are really important on music videos like the one we did for Blau's song Tokyo. Last episode we talked about polishing your edit by cutting on the beat, using light leaks, and reframing your shots. Make sure to check it out, link in the description. Today I'll show you how we get from a sequence full of clips that look like this to one full of clips that look like this. So without any more waiting, let's get into it. Before we dive into color correction, there are a few things that you should first consider about your environment. First, make sure that your editing environment is relatively neutral. If you have any weird green fluorescent lights or any funky colored LEDs, it might throw your sense of color off. For this step, I recommend keeping your surroundings as neutral as you can. I'm actually going to do that right now. Ta-da! Now everything in this room has the same color light. Next, I know a lot of people like using night shift or similar technologies that yellow or orange their computer screen to lower eye strain. And this is totally fine in most cases, but it'll really sabotage your results if you have these turned on while you're color grading. So make sure to turn them off. Just like this. Ah, much better. Now it's time to dive into color correction in Filmora Pro. I'm going to switch to a workspace I use for color work by going to Window, Workspaces, Color. You don't need your layout to be like this, but I like having my controls on one side of the image and my scopes on the other side, just like this. So we have all our clips on the timeline, and let's address the most obvious thing first. These clips look super washed out. As I mentioned in a past video, we shot our video using what's often called a log or flat color profile, which lets us retain detail in the highlights and shadows. A lot of DSLRs will also come with log profiles that work in a similar way. We're going to need to bring back a ton of contrast and saturation for this. A lot of people will use LUTs made to convert flat footage from their specific camera into normal looking footage, and I actually have one here that our cinematographer sent us. But here's one way you can bring contrast and saturation back into your footage if you don't have a special LUT file for this purpose. I'm actually going to go to our scopes panel and look for the waveform. This will let me see where my brightness values are while I do this. Left to right on this panel corresponds with left to right on our image, but up and down corresponds to the brightness values. Since there's not much contrast here, you'll see we don't have anything appearing in the bottom 10% or up in the highlights. Let's drag a curves effect onto this clip and make a bit of an S shape, which we can start by pressing this preset. This will give us a boost to our contrast by raising our highlights and bringing down our shadows, and you'll see this reflected in the waveform monitor. Let's adjust it a bit until we're happy with how this looks, and we'll try to keep our brightest areas of the image within the waveform monitor's range so we don't start losing detail. Next, let's switch our scope from the waveform to the vector scope. The vector scope is a readout of your clip's color. Different parts of the circle represent different hues. The center of the circle represents value with no saturation like white, black, and gray, while the outside of the circle represents values at full saturation. This line in the top left is really important for color correction. It represents the skin tone line. Most human skin tones fall somewhere along this line. If you're color correcting music videos with a good amount of natural or neutral light, correcting for skin tones can be a great way to make the overall image look right. However, since our music video has a lot of colorful light in it, we won't be able to use this technique in most shots. We do, however, have this final shot of the music video where we really want to nail the skin tones. I'll add my curves adjustment and then bring up the saturation a bit with the hue, saturation, and lightness effect. And then we can look at our vector scope. The easiest way for us to see how our skin tones look is to draw a mask over the subject's face and look at the vector scope to see how well it lines up with the skin tones. And it actually looks like our skin tones are right on the mark. This little bit of red on the side corresponds with the actress's lips. If we need to make changes, this is where I'd probably use an effect like YUV color correction and adjust the color of the midtones. After you finish color correcting your footage, it's time to add some visual style in the color grading phase. This is where you can make the footage feel really warm or cold to convey a certain feeling. You can add vignettes or selectively darken certain areas of your footage to make parts of your frame pop out more, or even add creative LUT files to add even more style to your video. Let's look at my favorite shot in the entire music video. It's this push-in shot from outside the bus. So with our color correction already applied, this already looks pretty great to me, but I think there are a few things we can tweak. First, I'm not 100% on board with the color palette that we have here. It looks pretty good, but I feel like making our teal color a little more blue, so I'll add a hue, saturation, and lightness effect. I'm going to go down to cyan and adjust the hue a little bit towards blue, about 15 degrees. I'm also going to move the green and blue hues a little bit to the right, though a little less at 10 degrees. Second, I feel like we could use a little more contrast in this shot, so I'm going to add a brightness and contrast effect and nudge it up slightly. Next, I'm noticing our clip is a little dark in the shadow regions. I'm going to add a curves adjustment and put it before my color correction. If you used curves for your color correction, you could probably just adjust that instead of adding an extra curves effect for this step. Finally, I think our actress's face is a little dark in this frame. I'm going to grab a vignette effect and change the scale and position to center in on her face. Next, I'm going to dial down the strength and place the effect before my other adjustments. And if I feel like I overall need to bring the brightness up, I'll go back to our curves effect and adjust that. There we go. So that's a look at the color grading and color correction for the music video for 3LAU's song Tokyo. Stay tuned for the next video where we talk about using titles in music videos. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, there's no limit to what you can make.